Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and welcome to the Karey Carbaugh podcast, episode number 61. Buenas noches, damas y caballeros, chicos y chicas, niños de todas edades, y bienvenidos a el Karey Carbaugh podcast, episodio número 61. Welcome. Sorry it's a little late tonight. I knew I was going to be late, but it's a little later than I thought it was going to be. I appreciate you bearing with me as I've had to shift this time. I am looking for another night that I can move this to so that it's not quite so late. As I explained last week, it looks like I'm going to be helping as a volunteer with a wildlife group, which is the middle school component of Young Life, which is a Christian organization that reaches out to kids in middle school and high school. The wildlife group is the middle school group. And as many of you that know me personally know, that this is a passion of mine. It has been for most of my adult life, ministering to middle school and high school kids as well as upper elementary school age kids. So I'm excited to be getting back into that. It's been a little while. I've not been able to work my way into that group with my current church, and the previous church that I'd been volunteering at doesn't really have a youth group anymore. So this is a new chapter in my life, and I appreciate you followers bearing with me as I look at where that's going to lead this podcast as far as what date and time to land on. If you have a preference or a suggestion, I would welcome comments or suggestions in the comments. If there's a time that would work well for you to watch, let me know that. Probably evenings or weekends since I work during the day. Could potentially do an early morning sometime. I'm bouncing around a few different ideas and hope to settle on something soon. But I appreciate all of your support throughout these last 60 podcasts, and tonight being number 61. I can't express how grateful I am for those of you who have stuck with me through this time, and we will definitely land on a time that is a little more optimal, because I know this is really late for my friends and followers on the East Coast. So you may be catching this on the replay. Let me know by dropping a comment in the comments, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. Drop the word live or replay, or simply an L or an R to let me know, as always. And as always, if you're liking this podcast, smash that like button. Like if you do, leave me a comment and let me know what's resonating with you. Tonight's episode is going to be a good one, I think. I think you'll get value. I hope you do from it. The other thing I was going to ask is if you'd let me know where you're watching from in the comments down below. It's always interesting for me to see where these episodes are reaching. But let's dive into tonight's topic. As you know, if you've been following me for any length of time, my podcast is aimed at helping people with self-esteem, helping to improve self-esteem and build self-esteem, self-worth. And this topic, I think, is going to be particularly beneficial. As a lot of my topics do, this one came to me this past Sunday in church as we were studying through the book of Nehemiah in chapters 7 and 8. And I'm not going to read those tonight. As most of you know, I am a Christian. I don't hide that, but I also don't force it on anyone. But I'll do some paraphrasing of Nehemiah. I see some comments coming in. Welcome in. I will read those here in a moment. I'll paraphrase some things from Nehemiah, and we'll diverge a bit from a Christian perspective, but I think it'll be relevant to those who are believers. But tonight's episode, for those who are not believers, I think you'll find, if you stick with me, this one will be a little less Christian focused and biblical focused than some of them, but with a biblical grounding and framework. As we look through the book of Nehemiah in chapters 7 and 8, they've completed the wall around the city of Jerusalem after returning. Nehemiah returned with the purpose of building that wall. That was his primary purpose for returning back to Israel. And in chapters 7 and 8, they've completed the wall, and they're kind of going into a bit of a funk, if you will, after completing the project. They're getting a lot of disagreement, or people from outside taunting them and trying to throw sticks and stones at what they've built, and not really supporting them. A lot of the people from outside of the town of Israel that didn't really, or the town of Jerusalem rather, that didn't really want the wall rebuilt. And so we see Nehemiah responding to that. And thank you, Pastor Nick. Shout out to Pastor Nick, who gave me this idea. How many of you have ever had a big project that you've undertaken? Perhaps it's education. Perhaps it's getting that degree, and it's taken you maybe years and years to do it. Or perhaps it's building a house, designing and constructing your dream home. And you throw everything that you have into that project. It becomes your life. It's all consuming many times. If you'd like to let me know, drop a comment letting me know what big project you can think of in your life that was all consuming for a period of time, maybe a few months, maybe a few years. And then as you near the end of that project, how does it feel? How do you feel when you've completed that college education, that dream home, that project that you have worked so hard to achieve? Are you happy? Are you relieved that the work is done? Maybe you feel a little bit depressed. I see some comments coming in here. Let me see if I can respond to some of these real time as we're going through this topic. Dr. Cutchin, thank you for joining. I'm glad you're joining us live here. Just popping on. It definitely has been a long time since we've talked. And it's good to see you live, although I can't see you. I'm glad you're enjoying looking at my mug. And yes, I would love to catch up too sometime. We'll have to, maybe I can give you a call this weekend or one evening this week. Appreciate you catching me live though. And let's see, did you put a... I know it's late for you too on the East Coast, so I especially appreciate you. Welcome in from the Eastern Upper Peninsula. It's probably colder there than it is here, because it's not very cold here. Thank you so much. Yes, this is episode number 61. Daryl says, congratulations on 60 episodes, and I appreciate that, Daryl. You've been one of my supporters from the very beginning, and I do appreciate that. Let's jump back into our topic here now. If you think about that project or that accomplishment in life, perhaps When you finish that degree, there might be some depression. There might be some, well, now what do I do? You focused your whole life and all your attention on completing that goal. Now what do I do? Maybe that impacts your self-esteem. Well, looking back at our Israelite friends in the book of Nehemiah, they've completed the wall, and they're kind of in a funk until they realize that's just the beginning. It's not the end. Why did they build that wall? It was to protect the city and to build the city the way God had commanded, to lay the groundwork for the Messiah who would come years later. But it was laid out way before that the city had to be rebuilt in order to lay that groundwork for the Messiah. And so really they weren't, yes, they had completed the project, but they weren't at the end of the journey. They were at the beginning of the bigger plan. And so if you think about it, I know my friend Dr. Darrell here went through a lot of schooling to achieve his naturopathic medicine, and I know I'm not saying that right. You've corrected me a number of times. But your degree, you completed that degree. And maybe there was a sense of relief. Maybe there was a sense of brief time of a downer type moment. And then you realize, well, that you got that degree in order to be able to open your practice. For me, going to college and getting my bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology, which I haven't directly used, but I got a computer science minor, which led me into my career. And so if we look at it from that standpoint, that the project is the beginning. It's laying the groundwork. If you've gotten a degree, why did you get the degree? You didn't just get the degree. That wasn't the end goal. The end goal was to get the job that goes along with the degree. If your project that you thought of was building a house from scratch, your dream home, that wasn't the end goal. Why did you build the house? Perhaps it was, as my parents, when they built a house up in the mountains, my dad's dream was to have a house that his whole family could gather in. So yes, his dream was to build the dream house, but the longer term goal was to have a home that his family could gather in. He wanted a table that was big enough to seat the entire family around one table so that all the kids didn't have to go to the kids' table. Maybe you remember growing up, sitting at the kids' table. My dad's dream was to have all of us around one table. And so when he completed that house, that wasn't the end goal. Yeah, it was a completion of a milestone. But the goal was to build the lifestyle and the life that his family could gather up there. And we had 2 or 3 gatherings up there before he passed away with the entire family, all of his kids and all of his grandkids under one roof. All of us with places to sleep. Some of the grandkids slept in sleeping bags on the floor, but we all had a warm place to sleep. That was part of his goal. And now we've carried that on as we've turned the home into an Airbnb, now that both parents are gone, so that other people can gather as families. We've had people that have expressed their gratitude in our guest book of having a place big enough for them to have what many of them have called their Brady Christmas, their Brady family Christmas. For those of you who are old enough to remember the Brady Bunch, and when they did their reunion episode where they all gathered together again under one roof for Christmas. So that's a goal that my dad had. And it would have been very easy, especially since he had been diagnosed with leukemia during the process of building the house. It would have been very easy for him to become depressed after completing the goal. But he realized that that goal was part of a bigger plan. to have the place for the family gatherings. And so if you think of yourself and the goal that perhaps you thought of toward the beginning of this episode, what is the bigger plan? Perhaps it's a part of God's plan. I know many of my goals have been to achieve things that I believe God is calling me into. Like with Nehemiah, God called him to build that wall, not for the sake of building the wall, but for the sake of rebuilding Jerusalem in order for the Messiah to later come. And that wall had to be built first. That was part of the entire overall plan. And so if we're fulfilling God's plan for our life, each milestone is a stepping stone toward the completion of that plan. And so if we look at it that way, coming back to our topic, our main broad topic for these podcasts, self-esteem, if you think of it that way, it's a great way to keep your self-esteem, your feelings of self-worth up, and not become depressed, not be down when you complete a milestone. And so that hit me this last Sunday as I was listening to the sermon. Nick went into several other roads along this particular scripture, but this was one piece of the passage that struck me that I thought would make a great podcast. So I hope you've gotten value from this. If you have, drop the word value or a V in the comments. If you can relate to having a big goal that you've kind of felt depressed about after completing that goal and then realized it was part of a larger plan, if that resonates with you, drop the word relate in the comments and let me know that. And as we bring this in for a landing, I do hope you've gotten value. I hope you can relate to this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have, smash that like button. Like if you do. Leave me a comment down below letting me know what resonated most with you. And if you'd like to be added to my email list for some planned future, more private events to go into some of these topics a little more deep, drop me the word email in the comments and I'll reach out to you to get your personal email address. Or you can direct message me, private message me with your email address, preferably on Instagram or Facebook, and I will watch for those. I check Facebook most often, but I've started watching my Instagram as well. So with that, I will look here and see if we have any more comments. I will respond to all the comments after, because I haven't had a chance to read all of them during the podcast. Oh, you're having a blizzard up there in upper Michigan, are you? It's been sunny down here, and today I think it hit 55 degrees, I think. It was a little cooler today than it has been. Daryl says, I have always had a high teachable index. That's always very important, that we stay teachable and willing to change when needed. And a willingness to learn. Absolutely. Lifelong learning is a huge thing, especially today. To bring high value to the marketplace. Absolutely. Going through and then it says see more. So I will respond to your comment for sure after the podcast. But absolutely, being teachable, being moldable, is very, very important, especially coming back to our broad topic of self-esteem. I think the more we're willing to learn, the more teachable we are, the higher our feelings of self-worth and self-esteem will be. And so with that, I will bring this to a close. We've been on here long enough. I've taken up enough of your time. But thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate your support, those that have been watching from the beginning, those who are newcomers. I appreciate all of you. I would not be continuing to do this were it not for some of the continuing ongoing support. So smash that like button because it does help the algorithms to show this to more people. And leave me a comment letting me know what resonated with you. Let me know if you caught this live or on the replay. And until next time on the Karey Carbaugh podcast, this has been the Karey Carbaugh podcast. We will see you next week, unless I come up with a better time for this between now and then, and I'll let you know that. But in the meantime, have a blessed day. Make it a good day. Make it a great week for someone around you. And do something positive for those that you come in contact with this week. Thanks a lot and have a great week. Goodbye for now.